9:15. Welcome back to the morning show with Jeff and Will here on AM 1700 WRCR, Haverstraw, WRCR.com. Joining us now, Tina Traster of the Rockland County Business Journal. You can find that at rcbizjournal.com. Good morning, Tina. How you doing?
Good. Everybody's okay, I hope, out there in Rockland land?
As far as we know, yep, indeed, we are.
Excellent. So I want to discuss what I think is really one of just very disturbing development, and this has to do with the Haverstraw Knights of Columbus and the original. We've been talking about this on the radio now for more than a year, but what has come to light points to really just a potential misuse of taxpayer money. So let me explain something so listeners can understand what we're talking about. When a nonprofit or a religious organization sells, or in this case it's going to be to donate a building, they have to go to the AG's, the Attorney General's Charities Bureau, in order to get approval for such a transaction. And that's because, I don't really know the reason exactly, but the AG oversees these kinds of transactions to make sure that the nonprofit, I guess, is not being taken or entering into any sort of a deal where they're not getting what they deserve. So more than a couple of years ago, the Knights were ready to sell their sort of nondescript building for $2.4 million, which would have been a tidy sum. It would have given them a lifelong endowment, and it would have certainly allowed them to really do whatever they wanted moving forward with their organization. Then there was some sort of a meeting that certainly violated the Open Meetings Act, and somehow the sale was called off. They met with Howard Phillips and town officials of Haverstraw, and then before you know it, the next thing that was to happen was that the Knights were going to donate their building. Right from the get-go, the plan raised all kinds of issues, and there were objections from everybody from the developer who had worked on this deal forever, to village officials in the village of Haverstraw, to an organization called Freedom from Foundation for Freedom from Foundation. It's called FFRF. It's an organization that basically monitors the violation of the separation of church and state. So there was right from the get-go, there were a lot of entities that wrote to the Attorney General's Charities Bureau to say, no, this deal does not make any sense for many reasons, including the fact that it was going to deprive the village of Haverstraw for affordable housing, because this development was going to involve 100 affordable units. Two, it was going to be a violation of church and state because the Knights were promised perpetuity in the donated building, but that never would have been able to happen, because that would have, as I just said, violated the separation of church and state. And it also, this is the point, it also really raised eyebrows, because the Knights typically had been given about $800 a month from the town of Haverstraw for years and years and years. And suddenly $800 went to $7,000 a month. And not only from the point that they were hatching this deal, which was in and around June going forward, but the town of Haverstraw then even doled out another $56,000 of taxpayer money to go backwards and pay the Knights from the beginning of the year. The deal was always very, very strange, but there was always an assumption for many, many months that a petition had been filed, as I said, for the Attorney General's Charities Bureau. And not only that, but also the town, to sweeten the deal, even paid for the attorney's fees for this petition to be prepared. So all in all, since this deal was hatched, the town of Haverstraw has paid out $120,000 in taxpayer funds to the Knights. And recently, at a Knights meeting, it was revealed that the donation plan had been called off. The Knights sort of made some representation at their meeting that this was because the full council had never voted on the plan in the first place. But the truth is, it's really difficult to know why the plan was just called off, other than the fact that it seemed that that there was a recognition that there was a lot of opposition, and that the Attorney General was going to be reviewing all these circumstances that probably would not have led to approval. That was probably an assumption. What was also an assumption, and this is what we have broken in this story that we put up yesterday, is that the Knights, even though the petition was being prepared, and even though the attorney that was hired, we have proof of the receipts that they got from the attorney was paid $5,000 to prepare this petition, and everything was going along until around October, November, and then all of a sudden the petition disappeared. There was no petition. What we've discovered is that no petition had ever been filed, even though it was supposed to be filed in and around late October, early November. And what this means is, and not only that, but what we also see on the invoices from Gervin and Ferlazzo, which is the attorneys, the Albany-based attorney that's handling the case, is that it seems to switch from a conversation about a petition to the AG's office to suddenly leasing the building, which was something entirely new. But even as of November, the Knights are receiving $7,000 a month in November, in December, in January, in February, and probably now in March. It's inexplicable. It's absolutely mind-boggling and inexplicable to understand why a town is using taxpayer money to fund a fraternal Catholic organization for, even when it was going to be a donation, but now, when it was clear that no petition was filed, and there's this big gap here, okay, it's inexplicable to understand how a town can justify essentially supporting a Catholic charity. And then in turn, just to give you some perspective, the Knights of Columbus, two pieces of perspective here. One is that there are 8 Knights councils throughout Rockland County. Only, I think, 2, or possibly 3, own their own building. And admittedly, it is very difficult to upkeep a building, particularly because the Knights is sort of an older organization and kind of, membership is on the downslide. But the organization, was trying to, I guess, well, that's why they were trying to sell in the first place, because they couldn't handle the responsibility and the expenses. Typically, they have been earning about $2,000 a week through their through bingo. But this was not covering their expenses. The town, for example, even paid $14,200 to put in a new fire alarm system. So again, taxpayer money doing all of this for a building that belongs to a fraternal Catholic organization. So anyway, the organization was typically receiving about $2,000 a week, through bingo, and then from that they would give $250, $300 at a pop to Catholic churches or other. They would donate money in small amounts. But now, with this kind of money, access to so much money, suddenly we're told by sources the Knights were giving, like $5,000 in donations to fix church bells and boilers. And if you look at the chain, if you follow the money, okay, if you just simply follow the money, what we really have here is the town of Haverstraw, paying to fix church bells, because it's just being, it goes through the Knights of Columbus, but then it turns into a donation for one or two churches, while this deal continues. And, the good faith here would have pointed to filing the petition, at least to attempt to see through the donation, which probably would not have made it. But the point is that if they knew back in October or November that they were going to pivot and switch gears and not donate the building, which is clear from the attorneys, from the memos from the attorneys, if that was the case, then there would have been a responsibility for either the town to stop paying out that kind of money, or for the Knights to say, to stand up and say we can't receive that kind of money because it was not justifiable any longer. And this also, in the context of Haverstraw, by the way, is the only one of the 5 towns this year that broke the tax cap. So it's very, very disturbing to try to understand how so much money could be funneled to a Catholic fraternity, while at the same time, the deal was off. The Attorney General assured us in a series of 5 emails that they never received a petition. So they definitely never received an application for the petition. I guess it raises a question as to, did they rightly receive this $120,000? When will the sort of the spigot get turned off? Or is this just some indefinite plan, where this one Catholic organization continues to exist on taxpayer money? And I mean, it's just, I would have to say, it's really just quite a mind-boggling story. And it's also, it's also ripped apart the Knights themselves, because there was a full support for them at some point originally to sell the building. And, in many of the complaints that were sent to the AG's office, it was pointed out that this really deprived the Knights of a long-term endowment. And so it's put so many things there's so many questions at this point, really more than answers as to the future of that council, that Knights Council, and also what happens with all that money that they've received, and what is to happen going forward. So we're going to continue, of course, to follow this and to follow all stories, that possibly smack of taxpayer abuse. It's just a very important story, and actually very sad for the Knights, because it's really put them in the spotlight. One thing I will say is it's unclear as to who made this is really the key here, is who made the decision for the Knights to not file that petition. Because, again, we have some correspondence that would have suggested, or some things that were said in their meetings that would have suggested that maybe the Knights thought that the petition had been filed, but in fact, it wasn't. It wasn't filed. So this is one for us to keep an eye on, and keep the sunlight.
And hopefully we'll have an update on that next week. Thank you, Tina, so much. As always, tune in to Tina Traster again next Monday at 9:15. In the meantime, go to rcbizjournal.com, sign up for email newsletters, and get the news there as well. Thanks, Tina. Have a great week.
You too. Bye.
Bye.